Hi, I'm really excited to have one of my good friends here with me today to talk about an interesting topic, the nature of Halloween and whether or not Christians should celebrate it, what Halloween is all about. And I'm really excited to introduce to you Marcia Montenegro, who was one of our students at Southern Evangelical Seminary. She's an ex-astrologer. She's said she's been active in Buddhism and the New Age movement. She has a full-time ministry and runs a website called Christian Answers for the New Age. And she's written on a lot of different topics. And one book that I have of hers I've had for years is Spellbound, called The Paranormal Seduction of Today's Kids. And it talks about how our culture in general does things and makes things like TV shows, movies, games, all sort of different things that bring our kids into paranormal, occultic type things that they really shouldn't be in. And Marcia is a great resource on that. So, Marcia, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. When I was a kid, I really loved Halloween. Much to my grandmother's chagrin, she hated the fact that I loved Halloween. I grew out of that, but now I have kids of my own. My question now that I've always kind of wondered is this okay to be doing this to let them go trick or treating and all this kind of stuff? So I looked up Marcia's website, and I'll leave a link to her material in the description. I looked up her website, and she had an article on Halloween, like I figured she would. And I started talking to her, and lo and behold, she was willing to come on today and have an interview. So thank you for being here, Marcia. I appreciate it. Um, is there anything else you want to say about yourself or your ministry to people who might
Oh,
be listening or interested?
okay, sure. And thank you for having me on your program
You're
very
welcome.
much. Um, yeah, my ministry is a full-time ministry that I went full-time in 1998. And I operate as a missionary. I have a mission agency, Fellowship International Mission in Allentown, Pennsylvania, although I live in Northern Virginia. And so FIM is my mission agency. Then I have several supporting churches and individuals. And that's how I do my ministry. And the goal of my ministry is to reach out to those in the New Age and the occult with the truth and love of Jesus Christ, and also to educate Christians on the occult and the New Age, to recognize it, to be more discerning, hopefully to help that equip them to have dialogues with people in the New Age and the occult. So that's what my ministry is about.
Nice. Very, very good. Well, let's just jump into Halloween. So I had always thought, when I was I just mentioned you a minute ago, I'm kind of OCD with things. So when I would get interested in a topic as a child, like 10, 12, 14 years old, I would go, like my grandmother would take me to the library and I would get all I could get on that topic. And so when I got into Halloween, probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 or so, she took me to the library and I got all these books on Halloween and I read, this is from the Druids and it comes from Sam Hain and all these different things. So I just thought there was just of course, I'm a kid and I just never have studied really since then. So I just thought this is just the history of Halloween, and trick or treating goes back to penny or a cake kind of thing. And jack o' lanterns are about scaring off evil spirits by carving into pumpkins and squash and all these kind of things. But in reading your article, it's not that straightforward. It doesn't seem so. Can you tell us, what is Halloween? What's kind of the history of it, and where did it come from?
Yeah, it's really like so many things out there. It's wrapped in a lot of really folk tales and stories that were added on to the day. There's so many untruths about it. Now, when I became a Christian, I was very sensitive to Halloween because I knew that that was also the day that Wiccans and neo pagans have one of their holidays, which in the Celtic name is Samhain. And I always thought somehow that was connected to Halloween, but it's not. But initially, I thought that, and I think I just heard it. I'd heard it, and then as from Christians, I heard things. But then, I came across material, and I was researching over the years, and I came to realize, especially in the last few years, that that's not true. that all these things we hear are not true. Halloween is really a commercial holiday. The trick or treating and carving pumpkins is all part of a commercial holiday that didn't start till the 1930s in the United States, although it didn't really catch on till after World War II. And that's when it kind of started to catch on. Um, and it's spread since, maybe the 1970s or so. It has spread to some other countries. But prior to that, it was not even in any other country
Oh, wow.
because
Okay.
it was a very unique American commercial holiday. I mean, people who make candy love Halloween, of course.
Yeah, that was a funny quote. I'm gonna leave a link to Marcia's article here in the description, but there's also another link that she gives in her article. And Steven says this in his. It says Halloween is a creative reinvention that gets turned into a Hollywood and Hershey's sale extravaganza.
Yeah,
So that was a funny
yeah,
quote. I can definitely
yeah.
see you wanting
It's
to. I
kind of
mean, there are a
funny.
lot of people who think the other holidays too, like Valentine's Day, and then I like that all
Yeah,
that stuff, but it does get very commercialized for sure.
yeah, and I think the candy sales are probably just really, really high on Halloween. I'm guessing maybe more than Valentine's Day,
Yeah,
but
I
I
used to
don't
work
know.
for Papa John's. I was a delivery boy for Papa
Oh,
John's years ago. Actually, when I
oh,
was getting my PhD, just to get some extra cash while I was in school. And our busiest day of the year was Halloween. Yeah,
really?
it
No
was Halloween.
kidding.
Yeah, yeah. People
Oh,
are, I
that's
guess they stay
interesting.
home and they don't want to go out and fight the traffic. And I don't. My neighborhood is crazy. We have people ride through. We have people. I've been in two neighborhoods where I live, and we both have people drive in with trailers with hay rides full of kids from other areas and things.
Oh,
So
wow,
it's an
wow,
event where I live. Yeah, it's definitely it's a phenomenon
wow.
basically. So yeah,
Wow, that is interesting. Well, where I live is there's so many people from other countries in the area that aren't familiar with Halloween or maybe have only become familiar with it since they lived here. And some neighborhoods may be very busy, but like my neighborhood is not. There'll be a few families with kids that will come go around, but not very many. It's not that crazy at all here. So I think it depends a lot on where you live and
sure. Yeah, that
just what
makes sense.
people are used to in that area. But of course, I should mention that Halloween is my birthday,
That's very
and it's
interesting. Yeah,
yeah, I know, isn't that interesting? I think so, considering what my ministry is about. I think it's really kind of
pretty
funny,
ironic there.
and
Yeah, I like yeah.
not only that, but my son, who was born 2 weeks early, was born on Halloween. So he was
What are the
that was a
chances of that? Yeah.
that was a birthday surprise for me.
So, did you grow up doing Halloween? Did he trick or treat when he was younger?
Well, that's yes. I mean, well, I did not become a Christian until he was 9 years old. Um, he did do the trick or treating, and I think he did do it even after I became a Christian. I wasn't sure, I just didn't know what to think of Halloween,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I was kind of processing everything. Um, and then he was really got to the age. I know that some kind of teenagers do trick or treating, but
Yeah. Yeah.
when I was, you know, when I was not really when I lived overseas a lot, so I actually didn't have the experience of trick or treating growing up, except maybe one or two times because we lived overseas and they didn't do that. They didn't observe Halloween
That's
overseas
interesting. Okay.
in other countries,
Especially since I
which
heard
is
that it
what I
kind of
just said.
came from Europe when I was reading my books years ago. That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
no,
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, that's the idea is that it
Yeah.
comes from these pagan activities and everything, which it doesn't. But even then when my son was doing it, there really most kids stopped around age 10 or 11, maybe 12, and it just wasn't. But now it's like you see people, teenagers and stuff. So then it wasn't really there wasn't an issue, there wasn't a decision to be made because he wasn't doing it.
Well, my question was this:
Um,
with that is, how does that tie into his birthday? Did he do trick or treating and did he get
oh,
did he get to do both? I guess in separate ways. Is it kind of like Christmas, where your birthday's on Christmas? You kind of get two for one kind of thing.
yeah. Well, see, and what makes it even more complicated is it's my birthday too.
Right. Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
we did not want to, especially when he was younger, and we still do it now. We don't celebrate both our birthdays on the same day.
Okay.
And so usually I would let him have his birthday on the 31st and I would have mine a few days later.
Okay.
And now with, working work schedules and stuff with him working, we usually celebrate on a weekend that's around the birthday. Like this Sunday, we're doing a birthday lunch for him. I'm not going to have I'm going to have a birthday lunch the following Sunday with my family and then with some friends the following Sunday because we
Nice.
have to, just for get people to get together,
Right.
especially this area.
Nice.
It's so hard for people to get together. We have to do it on weekends, like after church. So we try to keep it separate because, I wanted him to have his own birthday
Right.
growing up. And I can't remember. I guess we always celebrate on his birthday with gifts, but we may have done other things later
Okay.
because of
Yeah.
Halloween.
Yeah.
I just don't remember.
How did this
But
happen?
anyway,
How did this
huh?
happen where we get this false narrative that are so popular that Halloween came from, Druids, pagans, whatever, jack-o'-lanterns, from all this?
Well,
Where did they get that from?
that's really quite a story. And I want to say first that Halloween is really different holidays, but they've been kind of blended together. One is it's this commercial day that we're familiar with. The other is the modern pagan holiday of Samhain that Wiccans and neo pagans do, but they don't do Halloween. They do their pagan holiday.
Okay.
Trick or treating and carving pumpkins is not a Wiccan thing. That's not a pagan.
Okay.
That's a commercial thing, and they do their own, rituals and celebrations that are completely divorced from Halloween. Now, I even knew that when I was, an astrologer because I had Wiccans who were clients and friends. And I knew that Halloween itself was not what they did. That was a separate thing. And it is a separate thing, but it's not ancient. The modern neo-pagan movement is modern, and Wicca really started around 1950 in the
Oh,
UK.
okay. Okay.
And now the claims for it, many of them claim this is an ancient religion, et cetera. And there's no historical, background. There's no historical evidence for that at all. So they make a lot of claims to ancient things that are not true.
Okay.
And they do that. They do that for Christmas too, and that's not true either.
Yeah, there's a
So you've
similarity
got
there
the
with
same.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of similarities with Easter and Christmas. It's really interesting. Like three of the big days that some Christians think are evil because they think they're pagan. That's all not true. So I've dealt with this on my website as well with an article on Christmas and one on Easter.
Okay.
And so it's kind of a very similar thing with Halloween, except in a way, I think Halloween's more confusing because you also have it as, of course, Reformation Day.
Yeah.
It's a day that, many Christians will celebrate it as Reformation Day when Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the door of the church. And that, of course, kicked off what we call the Reformation. And the other thing is that as All Saints Day and All Souls Day. So All Saints Day actually was originally in May, and it was moved to November 1st around 900 AD.
Oh, okay.
Now I tried to find out why it was moved, and apparently there's different accounts of why it was moved. So I don't know if anybody really knows why it was moved, but it was moved from May to November 1st. And All Saints Day was a Catholic holiday when they remembered the saints, or what they called the saints.
Hmm.
And there was also a day called All Souls Day, and those got fused together. And so, since that was November 1st, the evening before of that was Halloween, which was the eve of All Saints Day, All Souls Day. So that's really what the word comes from. It really is connected to All Saints Day, not to anything pagan.
Okay.
Now, I'm not in any way saying anything good or bad about All Saints Day. I'm just trying to give historical background here.
So the term
So
Halloween goes back to that far, or is the even word more of a modern?
no. Well, now the word itself, I think does. I think
Okay.
it does go back that far. I'm going to
Okay.
double check that, but I think it does, and because it was All Hallows
Hallows
Eve.
Eve. Yeah. Yeah.
All Hallows Eve, and it got shortened to Halloween. Now, when it got shortened, I don't know, or
Okay.
if that
Sure.
just kind of came about
Yeah.
naturally, linguistically. I'm
Right.
not sure.
Yeah.
But that was All Hallows Eve, and then it became so. But it was, and what that was a religious holiday that had nothing to do with paganism,
That's a good
had
point.
nothing
Yeah.
to do with
Right.
anything occultic.
Right.
Now, what happened is when the commercial day started, now the commercial day starting in the 1930s was also not pagan or occultic, it was commercial. And, dressing up and going trick or treating and everything and getting candy is all this commercial stuff. And then over the years, different things happened where other elements started getting added to it. And apparently, some of these come from the late 1800s. Now, this is in the article by this man that Wedgeworth, is
Yeah.
that his
Stephen
name? I can't
Wedgeworth.
remember. Yeah, where he points out some things from the late 1800s where people got into horror as kind of a campy thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and some woman wrote a pamphlet about the jack-o'-lantern, which existed prior to Halloween or the commercial Halloween. And this story she made up about the Druids carving pumpkins and all this kind of stuff. It's all made up. She did it all as kind of almost like a joke. It was this campy joke. And that's become this tale. When I posted my Halloween article a few days ago, somebody wrote in a comment, well, what about the Druids that carved out the pumpkins? And I forgot what she said they did, something evil. And I said, that's completely false. That never happened. There's no historical evidence. So one of the points that I really want to make, Brian, is this. As Christians, we should care about the truth. This should be a priority for us because truth is God's nature. And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Therefore, we should not want to either believe myths or spread them. And I mean, I know people can do it unknowingly,
Right.
but
Right.
I'm like putting out a call here to Christians to please reconsider any ideas you have that this is a pagan day and it's evil. Of course, I like to point out a day can't be evil. Every day, this is the day the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it. Our day, our life comes from the Lord, and it's every day is a gift to me. I'm alive. I can live another day. This is a gift. So the day itself is neutral. It's what you do on a day
That's
that
a good
matters.
point. Yeah.
It's not even
Hmm.
what other people do. It's what you do.
Right.
So other people, as these things were added on to Halloween, I also had read another article in the past that at the Satanic Panic. Are you familiar with
I'm
that?
not. Nope.
The Satanic Panic started in the 1980s with a lot of stories. It started with the McMartin preschool case, where a mother accused the teachers of performing these satanic rituals on her child. And then it spread, it just spread like wildfire. And there was this huge case, which eventually was shown to be false.
Oh.
And what happened was a lot of the therapists who talked to the children would actually put the ideas into the children's heads.
Oh.
And they
Okay.
would say, oh, well, did this happen? Did this happen? And the children, wanting to please adults would
They'll just
say,
go along
oh,
with
yeah,
it.
that's what
Yeah.
happened. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But this satanic panic went on into the 80s, maybe into the early 90s. There's a lot of articles online about it. It really influenced the church. And one way it did that was it made Halloween very evil. Because the article I read said that before this satanic panic, Halloween was just this innocent day. No Christians thought it was evil. Christians went around, they trick or treated.
Interesting. Okay.
There was no, there weren't any of these ideas. Oh, it's pagan, it's evil. This all happened after the satanic panic,
Okay.
which I find very
Yeah, it is
interesting.
interesting.
And I think it's true. And my memories of Halloween very young are like I say, I lived in other countries, but I do remember one when I was here when I was quite young, and this, of course, was before 1980. Believe it or not, I was young before 1980. um, and it was just a regular. It was Halloween. It's like when you dress up and go trick or treating. That was pretty much what it was. That was it. Um, So the satanic panic sort of introduces other element to it, and it's almost like because of that, that kind of fed into this movies like all these horror movies being
Hmm.
released on Halloween. And I don't know if anybody knows exactly how all this happened. It just seemed to kind of happen and fall together.
Right.
So you have, really, I think you always probably had sort of scary costumes, but now they can be really, really creepy. People with like fake blood running down their face and, dressed in like really, really grisly type costumes. There's sort of this macabre um, bent to Halloween. But, this comes from people. This comes from man. Man is fallen, is, needs reconciliation with God. And so, of course, dark elements, if there's a space for dark elements to come out, they will come out.
Yeah.
And there will be people there that will cooperate with it because a lot of people like this dark stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Before I was a Christian, I liked dark stuff. I really like dark stuff, as entertainment, not to do it, but as entertainment. And so I think that this taste, a lot of people have kind of this morbid taste for things. And Halloween gives them a place to experience that and do it and
Yeah.
practice it.
Yeah.
So, and once it starts, it's kind of like a tumbleweed. It just keeps going and gathers more and more. And I think that's what's happened. I think it's a cultural and phenomena. I think there is a spiritual element to it because the occult intrudes in it in the sense of the images and some of the ideas of it are occultic and make people interested in the occult,
Right.
like
Right.
ghost, for
Sure.
example, ghost.
Right.
And having a haunted house on Halloween, that plays into the belief in the culture of ghosts and contact with the dead. So it feeds something that's already there. And I agree with the author of the article that we're referring to. And I think I say this in my article too, although he goes into it a little more. As Christians, we can choose maybe, and I think this is up to the individual's conscience as what they want to do on Halloween. If it bothers them to be part of anything, to go to a party or whatever, then don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think it's wrong to take your children trick or treating. I don't think it's wrong to give candy to children coming to the door. I enjoy it. I mean, I wish more people did come. Although a friend's taking me out for dinner on Halloween evening, so I'm not going to be here for much of the time to give out. Although I bought some candy, but I'd love to give it to them and just see how they're dressed and talk to them and everything. I like the interaction. And a lot of Christians will give out tracts with the candy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Um, a lot of churches, my church, for example, is having, I think they call it a harvest festival, and it's an outreach to the neighborhood, and this is what a lot of churches do. And
Yeah. We had one a couple days ago.
promote it and advertise it, especially in the neighborhood, because it's easy for people to get to the church if they live close. And they can come with their children. The children can play games. They can have their face painted. They can get treats, and they hear Bible stories. And this has proven to be a very good outreach in the neighborhood. And some people have ended up coming to church because of this. So we can take something like Halloween and use it to honor the Lord and use it to spread truth. But this is a choice. And if some people are uncomfortable with it, I know some people with a past in Wicca or the occult may be uncomfortable with it because of all the images on Halloween.
Right. Right.
And if it bothers them, then I understand them not wanting to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand because some
And,
Christians would have an aversion to saying they don't want to go out and be part of anything that looks demonic or ghostly or
right,
satanic or anything. So you're saying there's nothing
right,
inherently wrong with the practice of, say, trick or treating
right.
in and of itself, as long as we're not kind of dabbling in with that darker side of it. Like, yeah, I don't like the when I was younger I did, but now I've gotten away of liking the really demonic, satanic, evil looking costumes. I like the
Right.
yeah, I like. So I have kids and they dress up as things, and we're going to be the Peppa Pig family this year for Halloween. So if you
What
know
the Peppa Pig?
Peppa Pig, it's a TV show for children, and yeah, we're all going to be dressed up as that TV show.
Okay.
There's a Peppa Pig park we took our kids to. I think it was last
I
year.
never heard of Peppa Pig.
Yeah, it's a new thing. Well, I'm not sure how. I guess it's on. It's like nine. It's not new, I guess, but it's comes out of England. I think they have English accents, and it's a family of pigs. It's the thing. So we're Peppa Pigs this year.
Oh,
But we were
Oh, okay.
last year we did. My wife was oh, what is it called? It was some kid show, and she dressed up as the character in the kid thing. I forgot
Character.
what it's called.
Yeah, I think, and I do say that in my article too. That I say hopefully Christian parents will not let their kids dress up
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
ghost or a witch or
yeah.
something evil.
And I would assume
You
that
don't
along that
want,
right, right. I guess along
you
the
know,
same lines, avoid things like haunted houses and the whole darker aspect of things. I guess
right?
that
Yeah,
would
you don't want to do things that honor something, either occultic or something
right,
scary or something morbid. It just, it's not Christ-like, and so you can, and I think you can stay away from that. I think you can avoid it. So a lot is going to depend on you and maybe your environment
mhm.
and what your friends or neighborhood is doing. So like, I mean, like, there's already houses around here that have ghosts outside
Yeah,
for
we have the same
Halloween.
thing. Yeah, I like the friendly kind
Sometimes it's
of
like,
cutesy stuff out, but pumpkins and things. But I don't like the monsters and
yeah,
that kind of thing. Would you put this kind of thing in the same category as your book Spellbound and talking about? Well, this is a way that is kind of a demonic way of bringing children into the paranormal. This is a door. Could it be a door that some kids or some people could walk through
Halloween itself.
to practice not
Um,
not just the actual day, but maybe an aspect of it where there's people
yeah,
use it as an occasion, I guess, to do those kind of things.
I think it could be, especially if they get into the entertainment, like some of the movies.
Okay.
Now, of course, those movies, those aren't only on Halloween.
Right. Right.
There's a lot of children's programs that promote occult concepts. In fact, that's what my book is about. And so that's already out there.
Okay.
It's just that there's more of it on Halloween.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't think Halloween by itself necessarily, yeah, maybe some movie some child sees on Halloween might get them interested, but they could see that movie any other time as well.
That's true.
But
Yeah.
Halloween does kind of concentrate it and make it more of a theme. So that's the part that Christians should not want to take part in. And here, and I wanted to mention one more thing about the history of it. And this is brought out in that article that we were talking about. There's a day in England, Guy Fawkes Day, which is in early November. And I had always heard about it, and I never totally understood it. And I actually forgot now what it is, but there was a historical guy named Guy Fawkes, and they have this bonfire and all this kind of, it's a night of mischief in
Oh, okay.
England.
Hmm.
Now, this is not historically connected to Halloween originally, but he says in the article that some of the elements of Guy Fawkes Day um, began to merge with Halloween, uh, from people from England who knew about Guy Fawkes Day started merging the elements of that, and that made Halloween kind of this, gives it this air of mischief too. That this, that things might happen, or that there's like these mischievous people around, and of course then people make it supernatural, like there are these spirits around and stuff. So apparently that, he said, that aspect of it was kind of brought in. So Halloween kind of took on these other elements that it originally didn't have as just a commercial candy day. And now the darker aspects of it have increased, partly, I think, because there's a lot of money in it.
Right. Yeah.
The money in the movies that are made, they're scary movies, can do make a lot of money if they're done well. Candy companies, of course, that don't have anything to do with any scary thing necessarily, but they're making money. So it's a very good money making day for some companies, and that's going to, oh, and costumes, of course.
I was going to
So
say that. Yeah, that we had a
vampire
costume store, and when I
costumes.
was in Charlotte, and they were expensive, and they had everything you could want there. Supposedly, and I did a different interview on Bigfoot with Doug Potter. Supposedly, that Bigfoot that you see in that really famous movie was a costume from that store. But yeah, costumes
Oh,
are really popular for that, and I guess it has become a big commercial aspect of it.
it is. It is. In fact, I heard on the radio a few days ago, they said, get ready for sticker shock. If you go to get costumes for your children, the prices have gone way, way
Oh
up. Of
wow,
course,
wow,
prices have gone up on almost
yeah,
everything.
right, right.
But that apparently is becoming, I think, maybe more of a money maker. So the idea of costumes, it's not like you can just get a cheap little $10 thing, from Walmart or something like that. Now you have to go big. And I think that's all part of the culture that we're always trying to go to extremes or try to do
Yeah,
things
yeah,
bigger than they
yeah.
were before. This is all a cultural aspect, especially in the United States. I think United States is a very competitive, individualistic country, more so than Europe and Europeans. And so there's this idea of, oh, I'm going to do something even scarier than last year,
Right,
or
right,
I'm going to make my house scarier than last year.
right.
So that plays into this. So I think what Christians need to do is be able to make a distinction between what Halloween really is, this commercial holiday, how it started off, that it does not have any connection to the anything pagan going on, and that all this dark stuff has been added to it, and that we can separate ourselves from that if one wants to. So basically, I don't want people to think they can't do trick or treating. They can't, have their kids dress up like a pirate and a princess or something like that.
Yeah,
Feel guilty about it. So Christians should make other Christians who do those things feel guilty, and Christians should make Christians who don't want to participate feel guilty. So we
yeah,
have to kind of, I think this is a individual choice, and just don't participate or look like you're endorsing the
yeah.
evil or scary
So
stuff.
it sounds like what you're saying is motivation or intention plays a big part of how this would
I think
be
it
for
does,
somebody.
because I think it's a neutral commercial day, and that's really what it is at the heart of it. But all these other things are added onto it, and so we have to recognize that. He talks about that in his article quite a bit, and says, this is a dark aspect. And he seems to even sound like he doesn't like to do anything on Halloween. But then he says, but for Christians who want to be able to do something, I hope this is information is liberating. So he's saying, see, you really aren't participating in something pagan if you carve
Yeah.
a pumpkin
Hmm.
or you dress up. Because I also heard some of the legends or myths I heard were that the costumes were to fool the spirits or scare the spirits away.
That's what
And
I've
then I
always
thought,
heard. Yeah.
but that's not pagan, because I mean pagans don't want to scare the spirits away. So I got very confused with I was hearing contradictory things about Halloween. One hand here it's supposed to be pagan, and then on the other hand it's supposed to like scare the spirits away. And I'm like, but wait a minute, that's like contradictory there, and
That's
it's
a good
because
point. Yeah.
it's not true. So that explains why I was confused because it's not true. False things will confuse you. And there's a lot of confusion about Halloween out there. It's just, this is so typical of the way myths and falsehoods take hold. It's so easy for them to take hold. Then you have all these websites that repeat. Of course, now with the internet, it's even worse.
Right.
You have
Right.
all these websites repeating the same thing, the same falsehoods. And so people think, well, this has to be true. I went to 7 websites and they all said this and this and this. So it's got to be true. But the thing is, there's no historical evidence for it at all. So,
Well,
there
that's
you
really
go.
interesting. Yeah, I've always thought there was just some clear line of from Halloween now until back into different parts of Europe and all that kind of. That's really interesting. So it sounds like
Yeah,
that there's nothing inherently evil with the day or the practices that say trick or treating. It's all about intention, maybe motivation, and staying away from the darker aspects and just enjoying the. If you want to go trick or treating, to do that in a lighthearted way that doesn't maybe cross the line that you could cross anytime into being dark or evil in that kind of regard.
right.
Yeah. I also think, as
Exactly.
you mentioned this, and I was going to bring it up too, that the church, it's a good opportunity also for the church to be aware of Reformation Day. That there is
Right.
something to celebrate here. If you're a Protestant, maybe not if you're Catholic, I guess, but if you're a Protestant, this is where we were born. The Protestant Reformation was born, and it does connect to All Saints Day, because the reason that Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses up was because there was an expectation of a lot of people coming to that church in Wittenberg, Germany, for All Saints Day. So he put the theses up on the door so people would see it when they came to visit Prince Frederick.
Oh,
And
okay. I
and
didn't know that. I didn't know that's why he did it on
yeah,
that day. That's very
I
interesting.
enjoy Luther and the Protestant Reformation, that kind of thing. So there was an expectation that people were going to come see Fred. Frederick's relics. So the Catholics would come look at the relics, and so Luther said, "Well, I will get their attention when they come to see the relics by posting his 95 Theses, and they'll see that." And then someone
Oh,
took that off the door. It was written in Latin, translated it into the local dialect, and that's when it kind of blew up. So a lot of interesting
oh,
things going
wow,
on.
that is so I'm so glad to know that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. A very interesting point that he picked that time. So there he is. He's using a time that, he probably I'm guessing maybe he wasn't big on honoring relics of saints. I
Well,
don't
he
know.
made that
But
transition, and he wanted to get away from that
yeah,
because he
yeah,
didn't think that
exactly.
relics had this kind of, I'm going to use the word occultic power to infuse
Yeah,
grace or give you
exactly.
grace. And then Frederick ended up rejecting it too and getting rid of them, and he became more of a Protestant as well. So it's a really interesting time, and it has that little connection there to All Saints Day.
Yeah, and so he took a day that was honoring something he didn't believe in and said, "This is where I'm gonna post the truth about,
Yep.
salvation by faith, the scriptures as the authority." And he used it to do so that we can do the same thing today on Halloween. You can put tracks in your, with the candy that you give children, or you can do participate in outreach that a church is doing and be a volunteer to help out there at that. So, there are ways that you can make use of this day. And, that's really the approach that I like to encourage.
Thank you for being on the show, Marcia. I really appreciate you being
Okay.
here. It's been a lot of fun. I hope people enjoy what you've had to say. And check out her material. She has really good material on a lot of different things. She's written not only on spellbound and the paranormal stuff of today's kids, she's also written on the Enneagram, which is a very popular topic in the church today and just in general. And she has a lot of resources if you're interested in new age type stuff, astrology. So check out her website. I'll leave a link in the description. So thank you, Marcia, for being here. I appreciate it and hope we can do this again sometime. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, I would love to have another discussion with you sometime. That would be great.
It would
Thank you
be.
for
Thank
having
you.
me on. Yes. Thank you.